Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting. Please remember to turn off your cell phones. The parking validation machine for the garage under the City Hall is located at the rear of the chambers. We're going to do a salute to the flag. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to do roll call. We have all commissioners present, except for Shiloh Ballard and Pierre Luigi Oliveira. Okay, who is here? Shiloh Ballard is our normal chair. I will be acting as chair in her stead. Before we move on to the summary of the hearing procedures, we would like to recognize John Leba's service to the City of San Jose and Planning Commission. Okay. John, can you please come up to the podium? John, we were appointed to the Planning Commission at the same time. It is a true loss that you will no longer be with us on the Planning Commission. You have an excellent attention to detail. You've always been a neighborhood advocate, and we will miss you. But we wish you the best for your future endeavors. So be it resolved by the Planning Commission and the Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department of the City of San Jose. Whereas Mr. John Leba has served as a member of the Planning Commission from June 12, 2018 until September 11, 2019, and whereas Mr. John Leba, Planning Commissioner of the City of San Jose, has given of himself with devotion, honor, dignity, and integrity, and whereas Mr. John Leba has served with a genuine interest in land use planning and has an understanding for all citizens of San Jose of diverse opinions and backgrounds, and whereas Mr. John Leba will be remembered as a hardworking leader, sincere professional, and genuinely remarkable member of the Planning Commission of City of San Jose. Now, therefore, the Planning Commission and staff of the Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department of the City of San Jose unanimously approve this resolution of commendation. Thank you very much.
Was there a motion and a second on this resolution?
Apparently we don't need to do a motion. We've already unanimously approved it. But if you would like to have a picture with your fellow planning commissioners, I would invite our...
Do you want your wife to come down and take it, or do you want me to take it? Or
Okay.
your kids, anybody?
Come on, team.
Because it makes you smile, denied.
That's a denied. Ah, that's a good one. So just to remind you, all be on consent staff would like to read something into the record.
All right, okay. Okay. So if we could play the recording of the summary of hearing procedures.
Welcome to a meeting of the San Jose Planning Commission. The following is a summary of the Planning Commission's hearing procedures. If you want to address the commission, please fill out a speaker card located on the table near the audiovisual technician and deposit the completed card in the basket. There are also speaker cards in the back of the chambers and at the side entrance. The procedure for this hearing is as follows. After the staff report, applicants and appellants may make a 5-minute presentation. The chair will call out names on the submitted speaker cards in the order received. As your name is called, please line up in front of the microphone at the front of the chamber. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Speakers using a translator will have 4 minutes. After the public testimony, the applicant and appellant may make closing remarks for an additional 5 minutes. Planning commissioners may ask questions of the speakers. Response to commissioner questions will not reduce the speaker's time allowance. The public hearing will then be closed, and the Planning Commission will take action on the item. The Planning Commission may request staff to respond to the public testimony, ask staff questions, and discuss the item. If you challenge these land use decisions in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at this public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. The Planning Commission's action on rezonings, pre-zonings, general plan amendments, and code amendments is only advisory to the City Council. The City Council will hold public hearings on these items. Section 20.120.400 of the Municipal Code provides the procedures for legal protests to the City Council on rezonings and pre-zonings. The Planning Commission's action on conditional use permits is appealable to the City Council in accordance with Section 20.100.220 of the Municipal Code. Agendas and a binder of all staff reports have been placed on the table near the door for your convenience. Thank you.
Today is public comment. Public comments on the Planning Commission are on non-agendized items. If you have a public comment, please fill out a speaker's card and give it to the technician. Each member of the public may address the Commission for up to 3 minutes. The Commission cannot take any formal action without the item being properly noticed and placed on an agenda. In response to public comment, the Planning Commission is limited to the following options. 1, responding to statements made or questions posed by the members of the public, or 2, requesting staff to report back on a matter at a subsequent meeting, or 3, directing staff to place the item on a future agenda. Are there any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to deferrals and removals from calendar. I don't believe that there are any of these either. Are there? So we'll move to the consent calendar. I'm informed that we have staff comment or an update as to item number 4B. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, members of the public. Myra Blanco, Project Manager with the Planning Division. Staff would like to read revisions to the draft resolution into the record in response to concerns expressed by Commissioner Yesny. Under Condition Use Permit Amendment Findings, Finding 5, D3 on page 4 of the analysis is amended to read, the annex building addition at the subject site will not adversely affect the surrounding residential area. The church buildings are separated from the adjacent residences to the east by a 50-foot landscape strip and concrete wall. Exterior lighting is proposed on the east to light the footpath to and from the parking lot, separated by a distance of more than 100 feet from the nearest single-family house on the east. The project will also adhere to the conditions of the original conditional use permit approval, including lighting, design controlled and maintained so that no light source is visible from outside of the property. Refuse, all trash areas shall be effectively screened from view and maintained in an orderly state. No outdoor storage is permitted. Social hall not to be used concurrently for assembly purposes with the sanctuary. maintenance of a 25-foot setback from all property lines. In addition, church activities will continue to be conducted indoors with no change to the operating hours and as conditioned in condition number 8. Moreover, the proposed patio is considered an amenity to the church to be used as a social gathering place in conjunction with primary church activities. As described previously, the addition will not increase the overall intensity of the use, and therefore existing parking is sufficient. Condition number 25 of the conditional use permit amendment restricts the hours for temporary construction activity, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. And on page 6, the second sentence of finding 6E is amended to read, "The addition will not increase the church's capacity and will not be used for religious assembly concurrently with the sanctuary." Thanks.
Do we have a motion as to the consent calendar? I don't believe that there is.
Second.
So we'll do a vote. I logged in as myself. I logged in as me.
And for the record, let's note that, are you voting as Griswold? Did it take it as Griswold?
Yes.
It did, okay, good. And also, staff, if you could provide that language to the clerk, to administrative people in your office so that it's included in the synopsis of this meeting.
I will.
Thank you.
So the record will reflect that it was a 6-0 vote with one commissioner absent in favor of the motion. So turning to the public hearing, we have several public comments, but, so we'll take each of the items in order. Generally, the public hearings are considered by the Planning Commission in the order in which they appear on the agenda, and we will take them in that order. So we'll start with item 5A. I believe we begin with, is it the staff report?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Angela Wang, Planning Project Manager for the Planning Division of PDCE. Before the Planning Commission this evening is a conventional rezoning of the 4.69 gross acre site from R1A Single Family Residence District to CN Commercial Neighborhood Zoning District, and a conditional use permit to allow the demolition of 4 existing storage buildings and the removal of 20 ordinance-sized trees for the construction of a 4-story, 125,303 square foot, 152 unit assisted living and memory care facility with 83 employees on an approximately 3.79 gross acre site. The project site is located on the west side of Union Avenue, approximately 260 feet northerly of Los Gatos Almaden Road. The site is currently utilized as a storage and maintenance yard of the Union School District with 4 storage buildings. The site is surrounded by residential or commercial uses. It's bounded by Ross Creek and single-family residential to the north, medical offices to the west, multifamily residential and school district office to the south, and single-family and multifamily residential to the east across Union Avenue. The site has a general plan land use designation of mixed-use commercial. The designation is intended to accommodate a mix of commercial and residential uses with an emphasis on commercial activity as the primary use and the residential activity allowed in the secondary role. This designation allows for medium intensity of development. The project is consistent with the general plan land use designation and policies in that the project is a commercial use. The current zoning of R1A single-family residence district allows for single-family residences but does not allow large-scale residential care facilities. The proposed rezoning to CN Commercial Neighborhood Zoning District would conform to the general plan land use designation of mixed-use commercial. And 3 community meetings were held for the project. 2 were initiated by the applicant and 1 was sponsored by the city. During the community meetings, concerns regarding traffic, building height, setback, noise, and privacy were raised. The project design has been revised to address these comments by providing substantial distance from the surrounding residential uses, incorporating stepbacks to building design, breaking up the building massing with architectural projections and recessions, minimizing the window size where close to residential uses, proposing landscape buffers with trees at the project perimeter, and applying different colors and materials. Traffic issue was addressed at the CEQA analysis. The project completed an initial study and mitigated negative declaration and was publicly circulated for comments from September 6, 2019 to September 26, 2019. 5 formal comments were received. Comments from the general public are mainly about traffic, aesthetic, noise, air, and water pollution, and alternative use for the project site as a park. The comments did not result in any substantial changes to the project description, analysis, and or impacts that was previously disclosed in the initial study and mitigating negative declaration. These environmental comments are addressed by staff in a formal response to comments document posted online. Since posting of the draft staff report and response to comments, 2 additional comment letters were received. 1 comment was sent by a resident in support of the proposed project, citing the needs of this type of service. The other comment letter was sent by VTA regarding the bus stop at the project frontage. And I'm going to pass the presentation to our CEQA staff to address this comment.
Good evening, Commissioner. Tai Chao Lee, Supervising Planner in the environmental team and the environmental planner for this project. So staff would like to reiterate the transportation concerns from the community along with VTA as a whole. One of the major comments from the community is the additional trips generated by the proposed project would be too much and how that would affect operation on roadways and at certain intersections. Staff would like to reiterate that the project has completed a transportation analysis, which includes 2 parts. The first part is vehicle mile travel, VMT for short, analysis as per the CEQA guideline and per City Council Policy 5-1. And the second part is the local transportation analysis, which includes intersection operation standards. As part of the transportation analysis, the project was found to have potential impact under VMT, and therefore are subject to mitigation measure as identified in the permits and in the environmental documents. The LTA part, the local transportation analysis part, include intersection operation analysis at Union and Los Gatos Almaden Road intersection, one of the community's intersection of concern. Based on the analysis, the project would not result in an adverse effect on the intersection operation, and therefore, city did not require additional conditions such as alternative project operation hours or staggering time. Furthermore, staff received, as mentioned, staff received additional comments from VTA last week after the posting of our responses to comments on their original comment to the environmental document. So they submitted a formal comment during the 28 days. We respond to that, and they reiterate the same concern. The new comment reiterate VTA's original request to add a bus stop along the project frontage. The closest bus stop to the project site is approximately 800 feet away on the southeastern corner of the Union Avenue and the Los Gatos Almaden Road intersection. Staff maintain the position that this is within reasonable walkable distance from the project site, and in addition, the project has existing sidewalk connectivity to the existing bus stop. Therefore, as the project did not show adverse effect in its operation analysis, there is no condition for a new bus stop. Public Works staff is also present today to answer any follow-up questions regarding transportation analysis.
And I would like to pass the presentation back to Angela for a closing statement.
Okay. Since the draft resolution is posted, a condition related to financing plan and fees was added. The purpose of this condition is to advise the applicant that the city is studying potential impact fee programs. If any of these programs are adopted, they would apply to commercial development projects which have not yet obtained building permits. So copies of these conditions are provided for your review. So for record purpose, I'm going to read the condition as the following. The San Jose City Council approved the Envision San Jose General Plan 2040 in 2011. The general plan provides the framework for development located in San Jose. The city is in the process of developing financing plans to help fund affordable housing and related amenities and services. The financing plans may include the creation of community facilities district, enhanced infrastructure financing districts, property-based improvement districts, mitigation impact fee programs, commercial linkage fee programs, and or other financing mechanisms or combination thereof. For example, the City Council has directed city staff to complete studies and make recommendations related to commercial impact fees to help fund affordable housing. These efforts are ongoing, and there will continue to be other similar efforts to study various funding mechanisms for affordable housing. By accepting this permit, including the conditions of approval set forth in this permit, permittee acknowledges it has read and understands all of the above. Permittee further agrees that prior to the issuance of any building permit, the project shall be subject to fully participate in and pay any and all charges, fees, assessments, or taxes included in any City Council approved financing plans related to affordable housing, as may be amended, which may include one or more of the financing mechanisms identified above. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council to adopt a mitigating negative declaration for the project and the associated mitigation monitoring and reporting plan, and approve the conventional rezoning and the conditional use permit because the project is consistent with the general plan land use designation, conforms to the development standards of the commercial neighborhood zoning district, and is consistent with the riparian corridor policy and the commercial design guidelines, and as further analyzed in the staff report. So this concludes staff report.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? And you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Andy Gerber with Belmont Village Senior Living. The applicant with me, sort of as co-applicant, is Vicki Brown, who's one of the board members of the Union School District, as well as Denise Coleman, who's superintendent of the school district. Although they are not technically the applicants, they are the landowner who's ground leasing the property. And I've asked them to share the 5 minutes with me and kind of give a little bit of background on why they're doing this project, and then I'll wrap up with a few comments of my own before our 5 minutes are up.
All right, I'll be quick. I've been on the Union School District board since I was elected in 2004. And in that time, we've had lots of proposals brought to us as a district to develop this parcel. Over time, we've really considered them, and this is by far the best proposal that works for the school district, the neighborhood, and the community. Not only that, but it answers a question about senior housing and senior care. Therefore, opening up additional housing units for other generations in San Jose. As we all know, California does not properly fund education. The education funding is subpar, leaving districts to look valiantly for additional funding opportunities. We've leased closed sites, we have a bond, we have a parcel, we have solar. We're doing everything we can to put money in our coffers, because although we are in the top 5% academic achievement in this state, we are funded by the state in the bottom 1.5%. It's hard to keep up excellence if you're funded way below the rest of your neighbors. So we've looked for opportunities such as the Belmont Village so that we can provide great academic programs and a living wage for our employees. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So you said that you've considered other options. What makes this particular project so much better than the other options that you've considered and rejected?
So we've been brought things like Walgreens and with a drive-through pharmacy. We didn't think that was really great for the neighborhood, and it also, in not being great for the neighborhood, in our opinion, it didn't yield a good amount of revenue for our district. It also didn't provide the community aspect that Belmont has brought to us. They want to have their seniors interacting with our students. I mean, Walgreens wasn't presenting that. The other options were high-density housing. We also didn't think that that was befitting of what worked best for our entire community.
And I just noticed the time was decreasing while she was answering my question, so if we could just give an extra minute of time to the applicant.
And I won't replicate or duplicate what she said, but I'll just piggyback on it. You received letters of support for both of our unions, our teachers union and our classified union. They see this as an opportunity to enhance our budget, to support our students in our educational spending, to do a service to our community and for our children. And also the fact that Belmont has graciously agreed to offer their meeting space to us to hold our professional development, so they won't have to do it in a windowless, very small room where they're conducting all their meetings now. There's just a long list of attractive features to this proposal that were not present in the other proposals we received. And looking at the time, I will defer to you, Andy.
I'll be as quick as I can. Thank you very much for having us. As Angela had mentioned, there were 3 community meetings that took place subsequent to our filing an application for the project. There was actually a 4th one that we held prior to even designing the project. The reason I bring that up is to underscore our commitment to listening to the community when we design these projects. We are not just a developer. We own and operate all of the buildings that we've ever built across the country, and we now have 29 of them in the U.S., including one right here in San Jose at Santana Row that we built over a decade ago and continue to own and continue to operate. So we do take our commitment to our neighbors seriously because we intend to be their neighbors for a long time. And quite frankly, we hope that when the time comes that they'll come to our community. Some of our neighbors are here. I've noticed them scattered throughout here. We've spent a lot of time getting to know them, getting to know what their concerns were. I've spent time in some of their homes, going into their backyards, trying to understand what this project would look like from their property. I think that we have addressed a lot of the concerns that they have brought up, hopefully to their satisfaction. I'm sure some will say it's not enough, but I just wanted to emphasize that we do take community input very seriously, and the input that we were given both at our initial meeting and then at subsequent meetings after we had actually presented a design, we took the community's feedback very seriously and attempted to integrate it into our design revisions. So with that, I won't bore you with just going back over the project, which I know you have in your packets. But again, thank you very much for having us here, and please feel free to ask us any questions.
I think Commissioner Yasny has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The quality of riparian habitat along Ross Creek is very bad, and it's as bad as it is because of what happened on this site for years, and in addition because of the encroachment by other developments throughout the neighborhood. there's no nexus at this point under the city's own policies for requiring more mitigation, and you're actually doing a very nice job with what you have available. But I wanted to ask if you would be amenable, if at some point let me go back and say, I understand, I've worked with these kinds of land uses before, and typically there's not a lot of parking, there's not a lot of vehicles that are in the back of the building, and the parking's usually empty. My parents lived in a similar facility for years, and I wouldn't have wanted them driving. So what I'm thinking is, if over the years you find you don't need all of this parking, and you can therefore assure the community there would be no impact, if we were to allow you to convert some of the parking to riparian habitat that would, trees in particular, that will benefit the entire area, and if we would do that with just an amendment, a minor change, would that be something you would be amenable to?
I would say in principle, yes. Obviously, the devil's in the details, and we would want to understand it. You know, we do have a fair amount of experience projecting how much parking we're going to need for a project. Obviously, it's an imperfect science. You kind of do your best. Generally speaking, our residents don't drive, but obviously staff members do, visitors do. But we don't know, you know, how many of those folks are going to be living in the neighborhood and might be more inclined to walk. How many of our employees will avail themselves of the subsidized transit passes that we're going to provide. Certainly, I would say that if over the long run we realize that we constantly have an empty parking lot, certainly we would be amenable to that.
Sorry, if I can just kind of dovetail onto that. When we first started this process and started having the community meetings with staff and inviting community, just kind of informally before we even received their request for proposal, one of the big concerns of the community is they didn't want our staff parking on the city streets. So we asked Belmont to please incorporate extra parking for our staff, should we be having staff development at their facilities, so that we weren't using the city streets around the development. So that was something that really played into the consideration of extra parking.
And it is overparked, and I suspect that over the years you'll all discover you don't need all that pavement, given the city's other policies. So you would have to initiate the amendment, but we would agree through the language in the condition to facilitate it if in fact you don't need it. Is staff agreeable?
Yes, we can add language to that effect to the resolution
Thank
before
you.
it moves to the city council for their consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Were there any other questions? Yes?
Real quick question on the, when you build the structure on top of the public property, because it's retained by the school district, so that's not taxable, but does the structure on top of it then get assessed?
My understanding is that yes, it does. The land underneath it would not, because it's still under ownership of the school district, but the improvements upon the land would be. So we've planned and assumed that we would be taxed on it.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Any did you do specifically within your school community? In other words, PTAs or, and what was the reaction that you received? I know school communities, so the fact that you're here, I have an idea, but definitely want to hear it on the record.
Well, we work with a very conservative legal firm who said there is an education policy, it's 711 committee that he recommended that we have. Now, we spoke to other districts with other legal counsel that said, no, you can just kind of pass that and go. We didn't want to do that. We took an extra year and a half to bring staff members, to invite community members, to host special meetings. We even, Rita here, our Assistant Superintendent of Business, flyered homes personally. We sent out postcards within 1,000 square feet inviting people and letting them know before we even received the request for proposals. So we wanted to make sure that we could go back with a clear conscience to our community and say, yeah, we had the meetings and we did inform people.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say? You've got 30 more seconds or 31 more seconds.
No, thanks.
No? Okay. All right, we're going to move to the public comment portion of this agenda item.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call 3 names at a time to come up. The first is Mike Hennessy, second is Vicki Brown, and the third is Denise Coleman. And you will each have 2 minutes.
I'm declining Vicki Brown because we went with the.
All right, so the next, we'll call one additional person, and I'm having a little bit of trouble reading it. I think it's Stefan Kaludajurgic, something like that. I apologize. So do we have Mike Hennessy?
Yeah, I'm
All right, okay.
How you doing? Thanks for listening to me. My name is Mike Hennessy. I live in District 9. On your map there, just a couple blocks off of Rosswood. And I've had that house there for 21 years. Been a nice place. Refurbished it, turned out great. Wife's happy. Susan and I are real blessed to have a 91-year-old father-in-law, or my father-in-law. And even if this place was open, I'd put him in there. I think having something for seniors is kind of cool. We're all going to be there. Be nice to have him there because I'm hearing all the stories about him working at Bank of America downtown. I could recite them. I could recite them by heart. I drive by there all the time, and you kind of think, being in the neighborhood, what's going to be user-friendly for all of us, you know? And I heard they said a Walgreens or other things. Out of anything that could be put there, a senior center, to me, just makes a lot of sense today. We need things like this. It's nothing, I'm not saying we don't need Walgreens, but you know, you just got to drive a little further to go to another Walgreens. We just can't go drive any further, you know, to go to a senior center. And I did a little homework. I like my neighborhood. I live in Santa Clara. I work in Santa Clara. I restore cars for a hobby. I do a television show. And I take my cars to schools. When I see what the schools need, and some of you on the board know me, I think you do. I am wearing long pants. That's how serious I am about this, Mr. Olivero. So I don't wear short pants all the time, but when I heard about coming here and talking, I thought, I got to be heard. And knowing that I come there and drive through the neighborhood and seeing something that would be a cluster mess would not work for anybody. And when I go to schools, my wife and I are very good about donating money. When I hear how the money is going to be done, I always like to see, I'm a meat and potato guy. Where's the money going? Well, if the money's going to go help these people in the schools and our teachers, of which we really need, we need a lot of stuff. I mean, let's just face it, the list can go a mile long. I do think our education, our teachers, is somewhere close to the top of the list. When I know where the money's going to go there, I thought that was a kind of a thing that I thought was really pretty cool. Susan and I drove by, I walked and looked around. I thought, how could this really be a bad thing? You guys are going to make some changes, I'm sure. But I'm all for it. I'm in the neighborhood, and I like it. And if I went over my time, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little bit. The next speaker is Denise Coleman.
Sorry, I'll try to be fast. I know I already spoke. I hold District 9 in my heart. My family moved into District 9 off of Union and Foxworthy in the mid-'60s, right after I was born. And I've lived here all my life. I love this community. Working in education, I just see, as has already been mentioned, we're so underfunded. Our teachers are not, our entire staffs are not compensated to even live in the area. And we are scrounging constantly to look at ways, not just how do we best educate our kids, but how can we sustain the programs and the staff that we have. I look at this plot of land sitting next to us that's a dumping ground. People dump their mattresses, people dump their shopping carts. We get calls every week from community members, what are you going to do to clean up this site? We don't have the staff to clean it up as regularly as we would like. When we went for the request for proposals, we got 4 different proposals. Belmont, by far, was the best. And when they met with community members, they continued to change their plans to address the concerns that they heard. In fact, this gentleman right here came in concerned that he didn't like the dumpster facing his home. They totally redesigned it and faced it to the district office, which is fine with us. We want to be responsive to our community. We also have to be forward-thinking in how we best support the needs of our students and of our staff, and I believe that this project is one that meets the needs not only of our community, but of our children and of our educators, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. So after Stefan, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, we will have Rita Sohal and Adam Phillips. Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing me, this opportunity to tell you a couple of things. First, just, high-level look to all of this. It's a 4-story building, huge building. Everything around is very low-rise, 1 to 2 stories. My bedroom will be approximately less than 70 feet away from the service entry from 150 rooms. I don't know how I will sleep. I don't have a clue. But there is a bigger problem than that. In order to address the problem which all of the gentlemen and ladies were talking about, financing the district, we asked them in many public, meetings, told them that there are other ways, to fund it. For example, neighbors figure out, that there is a fund from San Jose approximately having $90 million for parks. And we asked them several times to check if they can put parks there and if they follow the procedure for Naylor Act. If you want, you can contact me. I can give you my phone number and I can send you the links. Essentially, it's saying that if the district needs additional parks, and District 9 needs additional parks, they can get into that fund. And maybe you want to double check that because there might be some liabilities against San Jose, because I'm not sure that procedure for Naylor Act was followed for this specific building. And which means what I'm trying to say here is this. If Union School District wants money, maybe the first address was to go, and check if they can tap into the money which already exists at San Jose, to take that money and make park there. Why? Because District 9 already needs a park, and because I have a 9-year-old kid, I know that if I want to walk to any nearby park, I need at least 1.5 miles. And no one else has the place, to go with the kids around. And they want to put, a 4-story building there. Check for the liability. You can also I can provide you my contact to contact me.
So your time is up, although I do have a question for you. And maybe our other commissioners do as well. If the school were to put a park in there and tap into, let's say that they could get the funding from the city of San Jose, once the funds ran out for that park, what's the ongoing source of revenue for the school?
I understood, that Union School District would like, to have some kind of lease. And I believe by reading materials related to the fund, that also fund can, pay for lease of that parkland, which means, they will be able to tap to the same fund. And also our neighbor checked that there are so many contributors, to that fund, and that's like a large companies which have $90 million in that fund. And because we have so many big corporations, there might be a way for them, probably you will still have money, because every time they build some big building, they pay part of the money for that big building, they pay to San Jose, into that fund, which means there will be money for Union School District that way.
Thank you. You've answered my question. Are there any other questions? No. All right, so we'll go to the next speaker. Thank you. Rita Sohal.
Thank you. Rita Sohal. I'm Assistant Superintendent at Union School District. I've been working there for 11 years. I know this space next to our district office is underutilized. As you can see, some of the area is actually just the dirt there. And I believe Belmont project will create a resource for our community. And also, as was mentioned before, our Union School District is one of the lowest funded district compared to statewide, and so we're relying on local funding. And we already currently releasing 7 closed school sites, which we using the revenue. We use the funding from annual revenue from the lease sites. We also using our reserve for ongoing expenses. So one-time funding being used for ongoing, which we cannot sustain. So the district is looking for other resources, other ways to generate funding for our students and for staff. So I believe Belmont project will generate revenue for funding to support staff and students at the Union School District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Adam Phillips, and after Mr. Phillips, we have Rex George and Vince Cantovi, I think.
So I've lived in Cambrian Park for 9 years. I learned about this 4-story project 4 weeks ago. Why? Because of this, a little postcard. The statements from these folks is actually incredibly misleading, and I want to express this to you. Just give me a little bit of time to do it, and I promise I won't go too long. So why didn't I know about this? I didn't get informed about this. They say, oh, we passed out flyers. I didn't see it, and maybe it just went in the trash like a lot of the junk mail that I get from realtors and so on. But it's almost as though this project has been quietly crept along. So I took it upon myself literally yesterday to do a survey in the community right around this area. I did a survey just yesterday afternoon. I went to 20 random homes, and these are the signatures I got from 20 random homes. Okay, most of these people were strangers, never met them in my life. Of the 20 homes I went to, every single one of them, maybe Mr. Hennessy's an exception, I didn't go to his house, was against this. Number two, of the 20 homes I went to, 3 of the people didn't even know about this project until 4 weeks ago. And one of them still didn't know about the project. Of the 20 homes I went to, 3 of them said that if the project moved forward, they would leave the community. They would find residence elsewhere. So let's review this. 100% of the homes were opposed to this. 20% of the homes either had no idea about this or only just in the last couple weeks learned about it. And thirdly, 15% of the homes said that they would move because of this. Now, if I conducted a larger survey, the numbers may be skewed, but I can tell you this. It's a solid bet that at the end of any survey, you discover that a majority of the community would not want this project built. Now, a cursory check from the neighbors found 3 main things, at least my cursory check. 1, too large for the community. 4 stories. Nothing within a mile is 4 stories. And I think only one place is 4 stories.
So I'm just going to let you know that your time's up, so if you could finish your next sentences.
It's super important that I be heard here. I'll make this quick. So it's too large, but another thing too is this traffic study that these individuals were talking about.
So
These are isolated traffic studies.
I'm going to have to stop you because the time's up, and in fairness to all of the speakers, we need to adhere to the rules, and it's only 2 minutes per speaker.
Then let me propose something. Actually, this is incredibly unfair. I do have something I need to tell you guys, and you're not letting me finish. The traffic study
So I've been informed that through council that there is a procedure to lodge additional objections, and you can do so in writing, but the procedure of the meeting.
If you have anything in writing, please give it to staff.
If you guys are going to rubber stamp this tonight as being approved, that's a huge issue. And I'm asking for more time because the community that they're saying is supporting this, my studies are showing in just a cursory glance that that's not accurate.
And I appreciate that you've got a different opinion, but there is a procedure that we follow, and in fairness to everybody that's here, you have 2 minutes and you're over your 2 minutes. So we need to move on to the next person. No. No.
Chair, can we continue? I know there's other speakers for this item, and
Yeah,
just to be fair to everyone else.
So if we could call Mr. George.
So you'll ask me to come back afterwards?
No. You can
You're basically going to rubber stamp this irrespective of any of the studies that I've done.
We're not actually saying anything about how we're going to decide. We're saying that the procedure is that you have 2 minutes, you're over your 2 minutes, and in fairness to everybody that's here, you need to sit down so other people can speak.
You're not going to ask me questions about this like you did every the other folks.
No.
Well, that's telling. That is telling. Because I'm asking for more time for the community to collect their wits on this. Because they're saying that it's not enough. Okay? The community doesn't agree with this. And so I'm asking for more time.
And we will hear from the other community members if you sit down.
But these few people don't represent the community. We need to collect everybody together because it's not right. What's being done isn't right. And I'm very happy. I just think that we need a little more time to get everybody together so that they can understand what's going on. I live 1,000 feet from this, and I never knew about it. And the people that I surveyed disagree with it. So what they're saying is not in conformance with what the study that I did. In any event, I'm not trying to hog the mic. I'm trying to say
we have the next speaker, Mr. George? And the next speaker after that would be Mr. Kentovi.
Thank you for inviting me. I am the adjacent property owner to this property. You see that driveway, that commercial driveway faces straight to my house. And somebody could drive straight to my house, and that's a danger to me. I bought in a residential neighborhood. And another thing is, I looked up about Naylor Act, Section C. San Jose has, District 9 has lack of 88 acres of land in this particular area, especially you have mentioned east of Union Avenue. That includes this area. And I know that in lieu fee San Jose collected with the QMB Act, according to CEQA, you have collected this fee, which should be used for parkland. And Naylor Act says the school district should first give the land to the city, where first to the city and next to the county, as the law is concerned, and they haven't done that. And city has money, we know. City has collected in lieu fee, according to CEQA QMB Act, and they are supposed to use it. There may be further liability for City of San Jose by not doing this.
You've got some more time if you'd like.
I support the gentleman who was here, and that is the community. We have only few people because we went to many meetings. It was just, they invite us to count number of people who were there. They never heard our opinion. And we can ask, and people are kind of afraid of these people. The real estate agent is City of Santa Clara's mayor. I am afraid.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, how can we bring more people together? Like, can we get more time to bring more people together? Because we think like we need to know why the school district is opposed to the park when they were required to approach the city for the park, and the city has money and funds for the park. Why they had vested interest in Belmont? And this could be a liability to City of San Jose because you collected money as in lieu fees according to CEQA and QMB Act, and Naylor Act applies here. And I sent a question to the CEQA, and they said Naylor Act doesn't apply here, but it does. You can look at it.
Thank you very much. You're
Thank
out
you.
of time. We could hear from Mr. Kentovi, and I believe that he's our last speaker. Are there any other speakers on this issue?
Chair, thank you. My name is Vince Cantori. I'm a lifelong District 9 resident and fully support this project. What I would like to say, the neighbors' concerns that live immediately around the project are valid, but any decision on this project needs to be balanced against the policy direction of the mayor and council. And in addition to that, it also needs to be consistent with your housing element. I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but I'll mention one. By 2030, roughly 30% of the population will be over age 60. Housing element policy H1.3, we need to create, as a city, we need to create housing opportunities and accessible living environments that allow seniors to age in place, either in the same home, assisted living facilities, continuing care facilities, or other housing types within the same community. Housing policy 1.4, the city needs to encourage the location of housing designed for senior citizens in neighborhoods where health and community facilities and services are within a reasonable walking distance and are accessible by public transportation. This is a site that meets the very definition of your housing element. And I would argue, as a lifelong resident of Cambrian, of District 9, I have a son who rides his bike every day up Los Gatos Almaden Road. Yes, traffic in the morning is congested, but those concerns pale in regards to how we as a city address the housing crisis. So I would just urge you, with all due respect to people that may have a different opinion on this project, I would just urge you as decision makers and other members in the community to support not only this project, but projects like this throughout the city. And I know this is a controversial statement, but I'm just going to say it. This building shouldn't be 4 stories. It should be 10 stories.
And on that
Thank
note,
you.
You're out of time. Thank you. So the public hearing is going to be closed unless I see any new additional speakers. Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing and we'll move to the discussion portion of this agenda item. Are there any commissioners with questions?
Actually, Madam Chair, could staff possibly respond to any questions or comments they might have heard that they would like to at this time, just to give us a little more information based on public comment and the applicant's comments? Cool.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michelle Kimball with the Department of Public Works. I would like to respond to Mr. George's comments regarding the project driveway location. Site distance was evaluated at the northern project driveway in accordance with the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials minimum stopping site distance standards, and it was determined that the site distance was adequate. Additionally, the driveway size and location is consistent with the city standard requirements. Thank you.
Before staff responds to any additional questions, we were wondering if the applicant would like to use their final 5 minutes to respond to any of the public's concerns.
Right. So I think actually the public hearing needs to be reopened because we neglected to give you a final opportunity to advocate for your project. So
I'm part of the development team, so I don't know. Anyway, my name is Rod Henme, architect for the development. And what I wanted to do was to talk a little bit about the issue of the height and mass. Because in order to accommodate a number of units and make the project feasible, we did need to go to 4 stories. However, I think we mitigated the mass to a great degree. So there's a quotation from Henry Cisneros, former head of HUD, that good design is the antidote to density. And what we did was, first off, push the building as far away from neighbors to the west and to the north as possible, and from the creek. Secondly, we provided a greater setback along Union than is required. We went to 20 feet rather than 10-foot requirement. Third is that we stepped all the building masses so that there are 3-story edges that address the north and the west and start to really create a much better scale as you approach the edges. And finally, the whole building is, as you can see from the design, highly articulated. One can imagine a 4-story monolithic mast would have a very different impact on the street and to the neighborhood. Instead, we have provided a series of masses that break, that step back, and create, I think, a much more properly scaled and building that is much more sympathetic to the neighborhood. So that was always the goal, to create a height and a treatment that would fit into the community as well as possible. Thank you.
thank you. Okay. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the purposes of discussion and move things forward, I'd like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation and also incorporate Commissioner Yesney's comment earlier where the applicant was amenable. And I do want, if staff wants to answer any outstanding questions, but this is strictly a land use item. And we have to, as planning commissioners, judge this for its land use. And the staff report and all the components of it are very adequate and thorough. There's always, inevitably, there will be opposition to any project, but I recall one of these projects, 4 or 5 stories, actually built adjacent to single-family home residential off of Bascom Avenue. And the issues and concerns of traffic and shadowing. None of those occurred afterwards. Understand every block is unique and every block is special, but I'm supporting the planning staff's recommendation, and also inevitably I must consider the actual use, and there's a massive need for people to age in place where they can have the assistance they need, and the general plan will tell you of our aging population that we have a lack of these facilities in the city of San Jose.
Are there any comments in response to the motion? Yes, Commissioner Yasny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Partly in response to the architect's comments, you'll notice I didn't bring up the flat roof question because he did a particularly creative job of varying the building masses, so it isn't flat roofed. I think it will eventually prove to be an attractive asset, and for all of the people in the neighborhood that are my age and older, it gives you a choice for the future, which is very difficult to find in this very expensive place to live. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? I did have one question that I was hoping to have answered before voting, and that would be about the bus stop. And I guess just what the rationale was in pushing back against VTA for that bus stop. I understand it's not needed in the opinion of staff, but what would be, is there a significant cost to putting a bus stop there? I mean, because most of the time I just see a little sign and a bench maybe. So I wondered about that.
So I can't speak to the cost, but for the purpose of this project, when we did the analysis in operation, the bus stop that's currently there is still usable, and it is usable. And there was no nexus to require the applicant in order to require them to add a new bus stop, not even a relocation, but a new bus stop, which is only 800 feet away from the project site at this point.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions before we take a vote? Commissioner Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a quick question following up on that regarding, I guess, responsibility for that when a new bus stop is initiated. I mean, obviously there's got to be some coordination with VTA because they have to actually run the bus to that stop, right? So if they're requesting it, I would assume that they're okay with actually putting a bus at that stop. But can you comment sort of on the coordination between the city and VTA as to how that would go down, even if you were going to condition the applicant to put a new stop? How would that work between the city and the county's coordination, or the city and the VTA's coordination? I'm a process guy, so I'm a little curious.
My understanding is that if we are to condition a bus stop there, yes, we have to go back to VTA to make sure that that is still operational, because if now there's two bus stops within 800 feet from each other, what line's going to run and how is that going to operate regarding churning and everything like that. So there would be additional coordination with VTA.
I guess just interesting because they're the ones that are commenting and requesting it, so you figure that they're okay with it, but
yes, we thought it was interesting too, but we don't know the logistic of how the coordination is going to take place if this is to be conditioned.
Especially as they're cutting bus lines, as we all know right now, so interesting that they're willing to add one or add a stop. Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair.
So I think we're ready to take a vote on this matter. So the matter will pass with a 6-0 vote in favor, with Commissioner Ballard, or Chair Ballard, not present. Moving on to the second matter on our public hearing calendar, item 5B. And if we could begin with a staff presentation. And we also
we can just take a moment to reshuffle ourselves.
Sure.
Thank you.
And if there's anybody who has not filled out a speaker card, who wishes to fill out a speaker card, please come down and provide that to us. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready, so let's move on to item 5B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Tu, Supervising Planner, on behalf of the project manager. Before Planning Commission this evening, our special use permit and vesting tentative map application to allow the development of a 20-story tower development with two options. Option 1 would allow 290 residential units, up to 5 commercial condominiums, 4 levels of below-grade parking, and 3 levels above grade parking. Option 2 would allow a co-living facility with 793 bedrooms and up to 5 commercial condominiums. This option will allow 4 levels of below-grade parking and request a parking reduction supported by a transportation demand management plan, including free transit passes for the residents. The subject is currently developed with a 4-unit historic apartment building and a single-story office building. Commercial and residential uses surround the project site. The subject site has an envisioned San Jose 24 general plan land use transportation diagram of downtown, which supports a very broad range of commercial, residential, institutional, or other land uses with an emphasis on establishing a destination downtown. They analyze in detail the project is consistent with the general plan designation and policies. Additionally, the project is consistent with the downtown primary commercial zoning district. A supplemental EIR with associated mitigated monitoring and reporting program were prepared for this project. Since posting of the draft resolution, staff would like to include an additional condition for the downtown financing plan. Bear with me, it's kind of long. Downtown financing plan, the San Jose City Council approved the envisioned San Jose General Plan 2040 in 2011, the Dearborn Station Area Plan in 2014, and a Downtown Strategy 2040 in 2018. The Dearborn Plan and Downtown Strategy, in conjunction with the General Plan, provides a framework for development located in downtown San Jose. The city is in the process of developing financing plan for the Dearborn Plan and the entire downtown to fund public improvements, affordable housing, and other amenities and services. The financing plan may include the creation of community facility districts, enhanced infrastructure financing district, property-based improvement districts, mitigation impact fee programs, commercial linkage fee programs, and other financing mechanism or combination thereof. The city is in the process of amending the Dearborn Plan and updating the Dearborn Basic Infrastructure Impact Fee. Update to the Dearborn Basic Infrastructure Impact Fee may include expansion of the impact fee to other areas of downtown. The city has directed the city staff to complete studies and make recommendations related to the commercial impact fee to help fund affordable housing. Further, the city is developing a downtown transportation plan that may require funding to construct the public improvement identified in the downtown transportation plan. These efforts are ongoing and therefore continue to be similar to efforts to studies various funding mechanisms for public improvements, affordable housing, and other amenities and services in the downtown. By accepting this permit, including the condition of said approved forth in the permittee, acknowledge that it has read and understood all the above. Permittee further agrees that prior to the issue of any building permit, the project shall be subject to fully participate in and pay any and all charges, fees, amenities, or taxes, including any city council approved financing plan applicable to downtown, and as may be amended, which may include one or more of the financing mechanisms identified above. So that was the condition that we just added to the resolution. We also provided additional copies to you guys earlier today as well. We will amend the resolution as it goes to City Council to include that condition. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend adoption of the special use permit, vesting tentative map, and supplemental EIR resolution.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? And as you know, you've got 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Mark Tersini, KT Urban. I know it's referenced in your in the agenda that Jim and Suzanne Salata are the owners of the property, but earlier this year in January we acquired the property under our ownership under Garden Gate LLC. I want to thank staff for their efforts on this project. It's been a very good project going forward, but it's also been one that's taken some time, and the time and effort that have gone into it is for the staff to evaluate our opportunity to look at 2 different types of housing depending on really where the market is going and heading. We are working currently with another project on a co-living basis, but we also had the interest to keep this one as an option for co-living. At this particular time, we're looking at a multifamily project with a group out of Boston. They're London-based, but they're also have an office in Boston. My brother and I intend to stay involved in this project throughout its construction and completion, and we're looking forward to doing so. Tonight, I have with me members of the team, including the architectural firm C2K, Kevin Sauser and Nathan Miller, along with our civil engineer, Pete Smith with Charles Davidson Associates, and the environmental team, Kimley Horn, which also did traffic analysis and analysis as it relates to the parking of the project itself. So I'm going to rest here, let Nathan Miller give you an overview. I know the plans, when you reduce a set of plans for a high-rise project down to a size that can be photocopied, it's sometimes a little difficult to read. So I wanted him to be here to be able to walk you through some of the details that are going into this particular project. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Miller with C2K Architecture, and I'll take you through a quick overview of the project. The project location is indicated by the orange rectangle. It's at the intersection of Reed and First Streets. A little closer view of the site. The project directly across the street to the north is, as I saw today, almost complete. And as Mark said, and as you saw in the staff report, we're pursuing two approvals for multifamily, 290 units, and option 2 would be a co-living project. For the multifamily project, on the right-hand side is the ground floor plan, and the main residential entry would be off of Reed Street. That would leave about 5,000 square feet of retail space available on First Street. There will be 2 parking entries with the multifamily option, one off of First Street and one off of the alley. When we change, if we were to go to a co-living project, one of those parking entries would go away. So the entry off of First Street would go away, and we'd be left with an entry off of the alley. The typical residential level on a multifamily plan is on the right, on the left side, and on the right side is the rooftop, the highest level, which would have a pool deck and amenity spaces. Now the co-living option on a typical floor would have 32 bedroom units. Each of those bedroom units would have sleeping areas. Some would have private bathrooms and some would share bathrooms. And then on each floor at the north end would be a common area where residents would share cooking, dining, and living room spaces. And then in the central portion of the plan, next to the elevators, are media rooms and laundry rooms. And then on the co-living option, the upper floor would be dedicated entirely to amenity spaces, fitness rooms, working lounges, and the pool deck as well. On the elevations, this on the right-hand side is the west elevation, which faces First Street. And at the bottom, you can see the facade of the existing building would be retained. On the left side is the north elevation, which faces Reed Street, which is where the main residential entry is located. And then you can see this is it's a large building, so we're using balconies to help break up and divide each facade to taller and thinner proportions. On the right side is the east elevation, which faces the alley.
I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think you're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the commissioner? Commissions? Yep. I'm sorry, actually, you know what? You've got a question from Commissioner Oliveira.
Could you just run the slides so we could see them and understand that
I'll
you
just page
have
through.
no time? Thanks. Thank you.
That's the final slide.
Thank you very much. So we've got 2 speakers. If we could have Mr. John Mitchell first and Mr. Mike Sodergran. Pretty good. And you'll each have 2 minutes.
My name's John Mitchell. I'm a board member of the Preservation Action Council, and myself personally, I think this looks like a really nice building here, and it'd probably be very appropriate to have some housing like this. Being a preservation, we got actually two little situations. That involves the Paulson House. It's a 4-unit apartment building built in 1910 by Frank Wolf. It was designed by Frank Wolf. If you're not familiar with the gentleman, he was sort of early 20th century San Jose architect, very popular. Did mostly single residential family homes, and this is a 4-unit apartment building, so it's kind of rare. You could consider him to be the Frank Lloyd Wright of San Jose. And there are books out on this gentleman. You can read up on him. So our concern is that we were originally thought that there was going to be a place to move this building so that the builder could go ahead and put up this building, which is needed and is fine. And it's only a few blocks away. And then I just find out Monday from our city historic preservation officer, Mr. Arroyo, that there was there's a lot that's owned right there at the corner of 4th and Reed. It's just as 4th Street goes on to 280, there's a little plot of land there. And this spectacular building could be placed there. And this, as I understand it, this building, this lot is owned by the city housing department, and I guess it was planned that we could move this spectacular piece of early San Jose architecture to this lot. It'd be a great building on a kind of an awkward lot. You could say it's a $10 haircut on a $2 head in that regard. But it would be a win for San Jose in keeping this bit of historic architecture. In fact, it would even be a plus for our gentleman friend here, the builder, because he would be involved with helping to preserve this piece of architecture. Ms. Arroyo was supposed to be here this evening to give me the update on the status of the housing department's involvement with this piece of property and what the holdup was there. Otherwise, it's a win-win situation. So what I'd like to do this evening is just ask if we could have a little more time, a few weeks or something, just to get Ms. Arroyo back and find out what the status is of the housing department. They want housing.
Sorry, and you're out of time now, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my piece.
Thank you very much. The next speaker. Do we have the next speaker? Or you the next speaker?
Yeah,
oh, wonderful. Okay.
All right, it includes typos, so you know it's not artificial intelligence. Hopefully it's some intelligence. I'm Mike Sodiger, and I'm speaking on behalf of PAC San Jose. I wanted to disclose that we have met with the developer. We really like the developer, and hopefully he understands that the cause that we're pursuing is not anything more than just trying to preserve our historic fabric here in San Jose. We view 600 South 1st Street as the bookend of what we believe is San Jose's true Main Street, and we believe that there will be efforts to push that forward in the future. Based on the review of this project, we are recommending that you not approve the special use permit that allows the demolition of the very rare Frank Wolf and Mackenzie building that John just described. We would also like to comment on the status of the City Center Motel Diving Lady real quickly here. The position that we have on this is that if the project has to go forward, the building should be moved, and that we should use extreme diligence in figuring out how to do that, and not just use a mitigation measure of 60 days notice to sell the building to somebody else that would need the help of the city to be able to move it effectively. We'd also like to request that the diving lady sign, a historical sign, we believe, would not be carved up, but would be kept in its current state wherever it ends up. We respectfully request that the developer, if they do not want to do that, that they would relinquish the sign to either History San Jose, PAC San Jose, or the county, so it could be celebrated by all the public, not just at the elevation at the top of the building. Although we do think that it would be spectacular up there, and could be viewed from the freeway. We believe that its context is related to street level and the gateway into downtown. There are several things that we believe distinguish San Jose, and these buildings, this fourplex, is absolutely unique as a Wolf and McKenzie building. There are virtually no others that are fourplexes, and so once it's gone, it's gone. A final comment from PAC is that we would, are we done?
Yeah, we are
Okay.
done. So last comment, and then we're finished.
Okay, it's just, we find it odd that any developer wouldn't be able to declare which way they're going to go with the project. And we do think that when you're trying to evaluate how to respond to a project as the public, it would be fair to know what the overall impact, whether it's 693 bedrooms or 274 condos. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that there's any other speakers for the public, but if the applicant wishes to make a closing remark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make this quick. With respect to the Pallison home, prior to acquiring the property over the last 2 years, our office has been doing very diligent efforts trying to find a location to repurpose this home. There is the lot at 4th and Reed, and we're open to move the home there. We were fortunate, Sal Pissarro ran an article in his in the Mercury News about our willingness to relocate the home if free of charge. And we also ran a Mercury News ad advertising the home in May of this year. We've received about 20 different inquiries for the home. There's some logistic challenges to move the home without cutting it in half and moving it underneath the freeway. And others had to do with whether or not it would be appropriately cited in an historic context. So we are still open. There isn't a rush to that. We do have city council hearing coming up, and we do have the conditions of approval, which will be additional noticing efforts to do that. But if there's an opportunity to move it, we'll move it. With respect to the sign, it's kind of funny, on the Garden Gate sign, when we were moving forward and we looked at the hotel sign, we thought, what a fun opportunity to repurpose this sign in the SOFA district. Sort of a unique sign, put it on the top of the building, and you do have a lot of people that traverse up and down Highway 280, and at least it'll be an attraction for them to say, wow, what's up there? That's sort of neat. Not only are the residents going to enjoy it, but their guests as well. But having said that, we're also open if there is really a place to put the sign at the fairgrounds or another location. We donated a sign that was part of the Greyhound development to History San Jose. Actually got permission from Greyhound because it was their property, not ours. In this case, when we purchased the property, it included the sign. So we're open to that, but I do like personally, I like the location that has been selected. It's kind of fun to have a diving woman diving towards the pool. And I think that's really it. I guess the last comment that was made, you need to have flexibility in today's market. Capital markets are challenging at best, and we do need that flexibility. And as I say, we're gearing towards apartments, multifamily apartments, but that can change, and it can change very quickly, and we want to be able to be open to entertaining other co-living operators that are evaluating San Jose as a place to be. When the first one gets built, I have a feeling there's going to be more to follow because it's a very enticing product type. Thank you.
Can I ask you some question? I think we've got maybe a couple questions about the historic building and the movement of that building. What's the size of the footprint of the building that we're talking about, and what size of site would you need to be able to place that building?
I might have it right here. Hang on a moment. We've been looking at lot sizes as small as 3,700 feet, but as much as 9,000 feet. My understanding is that, and our civil engineers here, and he did a plot plan on this particular lot at 4th and Reed. to plot that home on there. And I don't know if Pete Smith knows off the top of his head what the square footage was. Mike, I think we can fit it on about a 5,000 square foot lot, as I recall.
I think the structure itself is, I want to say it's like 40 by 60, so it's about
Yep.
2,400 square feet.
Correct. Yep. And one of the things, too, that is a little bit concerning for me for the 4th Street lot is when you look at the historical report, it really talks about the architecture and the historic setting, and I'm not sure whether or not that's really going to be the historic setting if the developments occur to the west of the property, which I understand is being contemplated right now. And I think that's part of the holdup that we've had with the opportunity to move the home. So I'm just suggesting that. I hate to go through the effort of moving it and then have something else right next door that disrupts that.
And would you be open to purchasing the site where the home could be moved, as opposed to having someone that takes the apartment themselves?
We looked at it both ways, purchasing the site and moving the home and then re-renting the units. They do fall under the Ellis Act, and so therefore that still continues with the building. That's part of the concern that others had. They said if we acquired it, what are our restrictions? What's very interesting about that whole process is those tenants that were in the building that were notified were on month to month. So the real question is, what is the start rate for the tenants? Our understanding under the Ellis Act, you start out at a market rate rent and increase it a maximum of 5% per year. But that was some of the issues that we had when people made it in court, because they just could not, get comfortable that they could take it and then rent it out to the free market.
So does it seem likely that you're going to find someone in the 60 days?
Well, I think there's an opportunity to do that if the city had identified an affordable housing builder that was interested in the 4th Street lot, so they would have participation in either the acquisition of that parcel and or the foundation, whatever work that was necessary to bring the home up to a standard to where one could occupy.
Commissioner?
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for staff, but you mentioned the two options, the multifamily option and then the co-living option, and that you weren't ready to make a decision one way or the other, and that's why both options are kind of coming forward. I was just curious as to what sort of criteria you weigh and at what point do you make that decision, because they look very different. They'd be different builds, and so at what point would you be making that decision of going one way or another? And then maybe this question for staff is then how does that decision kind of come back to council or the planning commission, if at all? So a two-part question.
Sure. First order for us is the approvals.
Mm-hmm.
And with the approvals, then we have something to go to the market. At this time, we've been out ahead of the market, and we have identified a group of builders that want to go forward with multifamily. What I don't want to get in position is making that decision with them. Interest rates tick up, construction costs go further up, and they get cold feet, and then we don't have the opportunity to entertain the co-living option. The beauty of this is that exterior of the building stays the same. The interior amenities are modified with some slight variations to the elevations.
Are there any other questions of the applicant?
Did you want staff to answer the second part of her question?
Oh.
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah. So essentially, when they pull their building permit, we'll look for conformance for which permit they're choosing, and once they choose that and choose to apply it, that's the direction they would have to go.
Actually, it's before that, because you are not going to be pulling building permits before you have your final map for the division of the property. And so, you are combining the property I think there are 2 lots currently. You're merging them into a single, and then you're creating 6 condominium units under one scenario, and more than 200 under another scenario. The 270 or so residential units and the 5 commercial units. So that map, when you come in for final map approval, you need to comply with all the conditions of the tentative map for whichever option you choose. And that's also going to lock in your site development permits, standards.
Agreed.
I've got a question from Commissioner Allen.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Tracine, I just had a quick question regarding how any potential revenue projections might play into your decision between the 2 options, and if you've, I'm guessing you've done some sort of revenue projections based on the 2 models, and that's part of your consideration, but if you could speak to that. You don't need to tell me exactly how much you're looking at, but if you could tell me how much that plays into your consideration between the 2.
It plays a lot into the consideration. Again, these projects are very difficult to get out of the ground, as the discussion has been in prior, planning commission settings, but council settings. So what we have to do is we do run the analysis of the co-living compared to the multifamily. What is one of the stumbling blocks right now for co-living is it has not been built to this scale. And so it is, the capital markets are reluctant to be the first player going forward. And I think that will open the door. So it is, they run very close as far as a rate of return. It's really the desire of the capital market and financing of the project.
Okay. I ask because just being a layperson and not necessarily understanding all the nuances of what you have to go through with financing these projects, hearing numbers like the average single bedroom apartment in San Jose rents for about $2,500 a month, that changes quite a bit constantly. But also hearing from co-living developers who've come before us when we were considering the co-living zoning ordinance and regulations, telling us that some of these beds could rent for as much as $2,100 a month for a single bed. So when you're talking about 793 beds versus 290 apartments, given that some of them are going to fluctuate between varying levels of rent on the apartment side of things, just back of the napkin, you could make a substantial amount more on the co-living project than you could on the multifamily, depending on how the rents break down. But just from what I've heard from the developers, that's more of a comment than a question for your response.
I appreciate that comment. I do want to mention to you that as well, which we're really excited about, is this particular group out of Boston focuses in on faculty housing, housing for medical professionals, nurses. And so what we're looking at with this design team is really refining the units, building in the amenities along with the furniture for the bedrooms to save that particular cost and really try to drive more studios, smaller units within the boundaries of the project. So these are the discussions we're having with this particular group.
I appreciate that, and thank you for your time.
Another question? Yes. Of the applicant or of staff? Oh, not done yet. Still in the hot seat.
I have one relatively minor question. What in the world is a laundry lounge?
I'd let Nathan or Kevin Saucer, that to me it sounds like I'm taking a nap while I'm doing my laundry, but I don't know what a laundry lounge is. I have a feeling it's just more seating and relaxation.
Coffee machine?
Sure, rather than just go to a dark room with a laundry machine, you can go do your laundry. There may be a TV there. You could wait and do your laundry with other residents. So a little bit more of an amenity.
Well, it sounded a little shady, but okay. But the rest of my question was for staff. Since the Historic Preservation Officer apparently is not here, does staff have any update on the availability of the 4th and Reed property?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. David Keon, Principal Planner for the Environmental Review Team. At this moment, I do not have any more updates beyond the fact that they're working out something about this 4th Street property, but I do not have any other more updates beyond that at this time.
There is additional kind of discussion given it is city property, but there is all the additional lands around it? Would the site fit specifically? How would the Ellis Act apply on a new property? Would you have to put a bid out for different aspects? So those things have been in the discussion, and so things are still ongoing for those specific issues.
Well, I can certainly understand why the historic preservation community would be concerned that once the discretionary decisions are made, their chance of getting this mitigation goes down a little. Is there, given all of the various things that are going on, is there any possibility there might be some kind of an answer before this goes to council?
So we have this project will have to go to city council because it has a statement of overriding consideration as a
Right.
significant unavoidable impact for the EIR. Currently, the tentative council date is the 19th of November. So if there is additional time there, I don't know if there'd be availability to push that date to allow more time, but right now that is the current, the plan was to bring it to the 19th of November. That's not, that's just over a month away. So, and I'm not sure about them being able to figure out with the housing department and other departments in order to coordinate to actually cement in the deal in order to move the house by the 19th. But that's, something that, if there was a real desire to potentially extend the council to give more time, I could see, that.
Right now, if we in the council approve this, we're doing so with no certainty that the building will be relocated. Is that true?
Yes, it is. So the EIR at the time it was prepared was assumed demolition of the apartment, and that's one of the reasons for a statement of overriding consideration. So that is something that is in the commissioner's purview as a recommendation, whether or not to adopt the statement of overriding consideration and the resolution approving the EIR with that statement to demolish the structure.
Thank you.
Are there any would staff like to make a final presentation? No. Are there any comments from or questions from the commissioners? Yep. So we've got Commissioner Allen, and then we'll go to Commissioner Oliveira.
I've spoken a little bit already. I don't know if Commissioner Oliveira wanted to make a motion or...
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Yeah, I would like to make a motion with the staff recommendation, understanding that the City Council will have the opportunity to review, and I'm sure the historic officer will be back at City Hall within a couple of days, wherever they are, to have an understanding of that. Otherwise, the EIR has been done on the building. And I do want to say that, this meets the goal of the general plan about putting density within the core of the city. And the option of providing two different options, I think, is beneficial. It's not our, purview to figure out what the rate of return is for the applicant. At the end of the day, that's their decision whether they want to risk or not. On Monday night, I attended the National Development Council seminar on housing financing, and it is not easy to build anything because no matter what you build, market rate or low income, you need people to fund it. And we often look at developers and think that some people do, and they have some negative connotations that these are greedy people. But at the end of the day, they have no ability to build anything unless they get a construction loan and all the other financing to do that. And the institutions will not provide the loan unless there's the return. And that return is really dependent on density. And that's where these projects are very difficult because of the things that we all know in the paper: labor cost, material cost, et cetera. So ultimately, planning staff decided to provide options. I'm fine with that personally, and ultimately the City Council will do the final review. Sorry for the length, but I'd just like to motion to approve the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Is there a second? Discussion? Any commissioners that want to be heard on that? Commissioner Allen?
Yep, thank you. I guess I question clarifying from staff or possibly the attorney. I think she said it earlier, but were we to approve the motion as stated, they no matter which option they develop, it would be contingent upon the conditions applied to each option within what we're approving tonight, right? So it's not necessarily a question of them getting able to change the project itself. It's just changing. They won't be able to change one of the they can choose side between one of the options and not necessarily change them. I'm not terribly comfortable with providing the options. I don't see why we're doing that on this project, and I've never really seen that before. I think it's a scale of a project where you should have some certainty as to what you're going to do and provide the city with that certainty so that we can make an appropriate decision. I do think there are significant differences between the impacts of a co-living development and a multifamily development, so I'm not comfortable supporting the motion. I do agree that both options would fit the goals of the general plan and meet those, but I'm not comfortable tonight approving something with multiple options. Thank you.
Maybe I'll make some comments. Unlike Commissioner Allen, I'm comfortable with the two options. I think both of them are great projects and would be well situated in that particular location. The thing that I'm not comfortable with is the demolition, I think almost certain demolition of a national, something that's on the National Register. And I think that given the scale of the construction, the relocation of this building, and especially given that it could fit on such a small parcel, is something that should be incumbent upon the developer as a cost of development. Because the building sounds like Ellis Act, it doesn't have, by the sounds of it, much value to anybody. It's really almost a negative value in that someone would have to take it, they would have to set the foundation. And so it is about really preserving this building and the cost of preserving it. And I'm not comfortable with allowing 60 days to advertise it. And prior to the demolition, it seems like I would approve the projects, but require that the buildings be relocated prior to approval. Not the buildings, plural, just the one building that's on the National Register, as well as the neon sign, which that sounds like that's not an issue. So, okay. Eligible for the National Register. So that's sort of where I come out on this. So if that was an amendment that I could propose to the supplemental EIR of if we adjust the conditions such that the applicant would be required to preserve the building through relocating it, then I would support the motion.
I'll comment on that since I have the motion. The applicant mentioned this was much earlier than 60 days. They started this process in May, had exposure, and then with the South Pizarro Mercury News article, they had 20 plus people approach. At the end of the day, we've seen this many times where people offer to provide a building for free, but no one will take it. So in the end, you also have an environmental impact report to review the structure. It's not a landmark. It may be eligible for, but it is not. And my motion defers to the city council because the city council has flexibility. So for example, the city council controls the land at 4th and Reed. Planning Commission does not. The city council may decide, you know what, we don't want to do a low-income housing development at 4th and Reed. We want to relocate this building or do a combination of that. But that's where the council has the flexibility, and I wouldn't want to hold up, a project that is, has been envisioned in our city's general plan for such a long time. And so I appreciate the concern of it, but there's a difference between eligible and actual. And I would defer to the city council on that matter and let them decide.
Got, Commissioner
Bonilla.
Bonilla? Yeah. Bonilla.
I think I'm supporting Commissioner Olivero's position because I think that's exactly why I'm seconding the motion. The city council does have that flexibility. I think we do want to be able to allow for them to move the project forward and give the city council the opportunity to weigh in. And if they see that it's an opportunity to do so, utilize that flexibility. May I ask a question of the applicant for a second? Just big picture here, ballpark. You've mentioned all of the things you've done to save this historic building. How long has that been? Has it been a month, 2 months? Just to give me a ballpark understanding.
Been working on it for over 2 years.
Okay, so you...
And along with Jim Salata, who actually is the property owner, who specializes in historic buildings and moving of those buildings. So we've engaged his services as well to evaluate these lots. So it's been an ongoing process for as I say, for over 24 months.
So 2 years you have invested in trying to find an alternative location
That is
for this
correct.
particular parcel.
That is correct.
Thank you thank you for the answer.
Commissioner Yasny, do you have something to say?
Part of the issue that I heard in the discussion is that we're being very, very fussy about where we want this building to go, because in order to preserve its historic integrity, it has to be in a neighborhood that's suitable for it. Well, that's something else the city council could decide was not really necessary. We have an EIR on file that identifies demolition. So the worst level of impact has been analyzed. Anything less than that is also included in the scope of the environmental analysis. So if the city council wants to make a decision that they're going to put it down in a less than perfect site in order to preserve the structure for the future, then that's a decision that's available to them, as I understand it. I actually found Commissioner Oliverio's argument very persuasive. I don't care about the two uses. The EIR has analyzed them completely. The city council can choose whichever one they want if they don't want the uncertainty, but it gives us more possibilities. And right now, that's what we need downtown. We need to widen the scope of our possibilities. So I don't have any problem with the not having made up their mind aspect of the project design. And I think the environmental analysis is sufficient for whichever way the council wants to go. So I'm prepared to support the motion on the floor.
I think I have a clarifying question, possibly for staff. In the report, I noticed that the 290 multifamily unit was 0% affordable, and yet the 793 was considered 100% affordable. Can you explain a little bit more about it, kind of what? Huh? Yes, it's strange, and just a little bit more about that analysis, and then what, how is if the 290 unit goes forward with 0% affordability, what are the mitigating sort of, excuse me, this is like my first real one, so I'm not sure how to frame this question, but like, what is the developer doing in order to mitigate the fact that there's no affordability within this project? Thank you.
So from an environmental impact standpoint, affordability is not an issue to address. Yeah.
I'm not asking from an environmental. Yes. Yes, from the inclusionary housing.
Steph, do you want to answer the question if you can?
So I would like to know first what part she's referencing about where it says it's affordable and not. The project is not proposing it to be deed restricted as affordable housing, but it would be subject to our city's housing policy and paying either impact fees or providing units on that. Prior to being issued a building permit, they do have to go to the housing department to see what fees would be assessed on the property or would be as part of it. That's just not part of our normal analysis, but it is a requirement and a condition of them that they had to finish a housing kind of a contract with them for affordable.
Thank you. So it's pages 281 and 283 of the revised report. So, and it's part of the City of San Jose Vehicle Miles Traveled Evaluation Tool Summary Reports, and it says under land use that for the 290 unit building, it's 0% affordable, but then on page 283 for the 793, it says it's 100% affordable. Extremely low income, less than 30% MFI. What is that? I don't know, because this is the first report I've read like this, so I found it was very interesting, and I wanted some more clarification on that point.
Was that the only reference to the affordable in the entire report? It might have been a typo.
Well, it looks like it's a summary form that potentially is, it's a summary form that, so it looks like it's part of a regular form you guys fill out as part of a summary report. It's part of the vehicles miles traveled evaluation tool.
So I suspect, staff, please confirm this with the records you have, because I don't have what she is looking at for some reason.
You said page 200 something?
Page 283 of the PDF, page 283 of the PDF that was sent out yesterday, I believe, which was a revised report. So it's dated October 22nd. It's part of the traffic report.
What I'm thinking this may be, but staff needs to confirm it, I'm just conjecturing at this point, is that the traffic analysis relied on the co-living facility as generating a similar amount of traffic as affordable housing would. But you need to confirm that, please.
And that is correct.
I'm assuming this was part of the revised EIR email that was sent out, right?
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I could. Yeah, no, it's in the packet that I downloaded last week. City of San Jose Vehicle Miles Traveled Evaluation Tool Summary Report. There is one for the multifamily. I'm sorry, for the co-living, and one for the multifamily.
So I do see that.
Looks like a worksheet. So
this is Sam with Public Works. That was a sketch tool to kind of evaluate what the vehicle miles traveled are. In general, this is already covered by the Downtown Strategy 2040. So this is more informational item. It's in terms of affordability, there's none that it's really included as part of this project. So that might be an error in that sketch tool. So that sketch tool is really, again, to evaluate the vehicle miles traveled for this particular project.
Just as a matter of clarification, I do want to say that, so this is part of the Downtown Strategy 2040 EIR. This EIR would, at a programmatic level, assumed a certain amount of development, residential and commercial, within downtown, and that was evaluated for vehicle miles traveled impacts and found to be less than significant due to its location, due to the mix of uses, and close to transit. This analysis in the Downtown Strategy 2040 EIR did not assume a certain breakdown in affordability or not. This is more to provide an informational document, but because this project tiered off of that EIR, is considered to not have a significant impact towards vehicle miles traveled.
Any other comments before we take a vote? No? Okay, I think we're going to go to a vote. So the votes are 4 commissioners in favor, 2 commissioners voting no, 1 commissioner not present. That's Chair Ballard. So the motion will pass. We can turn to referrals from city council, boards, commissions, or other agencies. Seeing no items, we're going to turn to our last item on our agenda before we adjourn, the good and welfare. Report from city council?
No report from city council.
We'll move to the minutes from October 9th, 2019. Is there a second?
Oh, I'm going to give it to Commissioner Calderon.
I am going to abstain because I was not present. If we could go to a vote. Right. So we have 5 votes in favor, 1 abstention, or 1 abstaining, and 1 not voting. 1 absence. Anything from the subcommittee formation reports and outstanding business? No. Commission calendar and study sessions?
Just want to clarify one last time that our retreat is on November the 22nd, correct? Friday? Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, and last time we said it was starting at 8:30 and the calendar says 8 a.m. So could we get clarification on, it is 8:30?
8:30.
That's great. Thank you.
Public record? So I think we are in adjournment. Okay, thank you, we're adjourned.